Have you ever sat down with a piece of fish on your plate, maybe feeling proud of yourself, thinking, I'm eating healthy tonight, this is good for my heart? Only to later discover that the very fish you thought was helping you may actually be harming you. I've seen this so many times with my patients over the years. A gentleman in his late 60s once told me, Doc, I thought eating fish meant I was safe from heart disease. But when we looked closer, the type of fish he was eating was quietly loading his body with toxins and mercury, fueling inflammation that made his arthritis worse and clouding his memory. This isn't just a scary story, it's backed by science. Research published in The Lancet in 2023 shows that eating the wrong fish, just twice a week, can raise your risk of stroke and memory loss by as much as 70 to 80%. But here's the part I want you to really hold on to. The right fish can do the opposite. The right choices can lower Alzheimer's risk by 40%, protect your arteries, and even slow down aging itself. Isn't that powerful? So tonight, I want to take you on a journey, the 4 fish you should never touch after 60, and the 4 that can truly keep you strong, sharp, and independent. Number 1. King mackerel. Let's begin with a fish that looks harmless on the grill, but is, in truth, one of the most dangerous choices for older adults, king mackerel. Now, I know some of you may enjoy mackerel. It's flavorful, it's hearty, and it shows up in restaurants under the simple name mackerel, which makes it even trickier. But here's the problem. King mackerel is a large predator fish, and the larger and longer a fish lives, the more mercury it carries in its flesh. I had a patient, a retired teacher in her 70s, who came to me worried about memory lapses and shaky hands. She thought it was just age catching up with her. But when we talked about her diet, she admitted she'd been eating mackerel twice a week, believing it was a heart-healthy choice. Her blood tests told a different story. Mercury was quietly accumulating in her body, and it was showing up in her brain and nervous system. That's why both the FDA and the EPA tell seniors, as well as children and pregnant women, to avoid king mackerel completely. This fish can accelerate memory decline, trigger tremors, and even raise your risk of heart attack and stroke. So my advice, as someone who's seen this firsthand, if you see king mackerel on the menu, leave it off your plate. Your brain and your heart will thank you. Number 2, imported catfish. The next fish on our list might surprise you, imported catfish. On the surface, it seems harmless. It's mild, it's affordable, it cooks quickly, and you'll often see it offered in markets as a budget-friendly option. But here's the truth. I've had to share with many of my patients. The problem isn't the catfish itself, it's how and where it's raised. Much of the imported catfish on our shelves comes from overseas farms where conditions are far from clean. I want you to imagine crowded ponds filled with fish swimming in polluted water, dosed heavily with antibiotics just to keep them alive. Those antibiotics don't just disappear, they end up in the flesh, and eventually, inside your body. And when your immune system is already more vulnerable after 60, that makes it harder for real medicine to work when you truly need it. I once spoke with a gentleman in his early 70s who loved frying up catfish every Friday night. When his doctor found signs of kidney strain, he couldn't believe the connection might be his weekly treat. But tests showed residues of heavy metals and chemicals in his system. Imported catfish carries risks that quietly pile up: kidney damage, chronic inflammation, even antibiotic resistance. My advice? If you enjoy catfish, choose US farm-raised, where standards are stricter and safety is higher. Number 3. Shark. Now, let's talk about a fish you might not see on your dinner table every week, but it still shows up in markets and even in certain restaurants. Shark. It sounds exotic, maybe even adventurous to try, but for seniors, it's one of the riskiest choices you could make. Just like king mackerel, shark sits high on the food chain. And the higher up a fish is, the more mercury it collects in its flesh over a lifetime. I remember a patient, a strong, independent woman in her late 60s, who once told me about a family trip to the coast. She ordered a shark steak because the waiter said it was a special. A few months later, she began noticing unusual fatigue, mood swings, and tingling in her hands. At first, she thought it was stress or just getting older. But her mercury levels told a different story. They were alarmingly high from that special meal she never thought twice about. The truth is, even occasional shark consumption can damage memory, weaken the nervous system, and put extra strain on your heart. That's why, as a doctor who's seen the long-term effects, I always tell my patients, when it comes to shark, it's simply not worth the risk. There are safer, cleaner, and far more nourishing choices waiting for you. Number 4. Tuna, especially albacore, white, and bigeye. Finally, let's talk about a fish that's a staple in so many American kitchens: tuna. It's in sandwiches, salads, pasta dishes, quick, easy, and for decades it's carried this reputation of being a lean, healthy protein. But here's what most people over 60 don't realize. Tuna lives long, sits high on the food chain, and that means it quietly collects mercury year after year. By the time it lands on your plate, it's carrying a burden your body doesn't need. I had a patient, a retired engineer in his 70s, who told me he ate canned tuna almost every day because it was cheap and convenient. He came in worried about memory lapses and mood swings, thinking it was just normal aging. But when we ran tests, the signs of mercury exposure were right there. That mercury doesn't just pass through, it builds up in the brain, in the heart, in the nervous system. It can cause confusion, irregular heartbeats, even accelerate cognitive decline. Now, does that mean you can never touch tuna again? Not necessarily, but it does mean moderation is key. If you absolutely love it, stick with light canned tuna in small amounts, and only once in a while. Because for seniors, protecting your memory, your heart, and your clarity of mind is far more valuable than the convenience of a tuna sandwich. So now that we've talked about the dangers, let's shift our focus to hope. Because not every fish is your enemy. In fact, the right ones can become your medicine. Gifts from the sea that strengthen your body instead of breaking it down. I often tell my patients, what you put on your plate has the power to either age you faster or keep you young in spirit. And that's why I want to begin with one of my personal favorites. Number 1, rainbow trout. Rainbow trout. To me, this fish is like a quiet friend, steady, reliable, and deeply nourishing. Unlike those risky predators high on mercury, trout raised here in the US is among the cleanest and safest fish you can buy. I had a patient in her late 60s who struggled with high blood pressure for years. She began swapping her fried foods for baked trout twice a week. Over time, not only did her blood pressure improve, but she felt lighter, more energetic, and her doctor was finally able to lower her medication. Rich in omega-3s, potassium, zinc, and vitamin E, rainbow trout doesn't just feed your body. It calms inflammation, protects your heart, and strengthens your immune system. And the best part? Its tender, flaky texture makes it easy to digest, even for those who sometimes struggle with heavier meals. Number 2, sardines. Now, let's move from the gentle rainbow trout to something much smaller but no less powerful, the humble sardine. You know, a lot of folks turn their noses up at sardines because they don't look fancy. They come packed in little cans, stacked on grocery shelves, often ignored. But let me tell you, in my years of practice, I've come to see sardines as one of nature's most underrated superfoods, especially for seniors. I remember one of my patients, a grandmother in her 70s, who told me she never imagined eating sardines. But after struggling with weak bones and joint pain, she gave them a try, just twice a week, mashed with a little avocado on whole grain toast. A year later, her bone density scan had improved, and she swore she felt steadier on her feet. That's no coincidence. Sardines are packed with natural calcium and vitamin D, two nutrients many seniors are missing. And because these tiny fish sit low on the food chain, they carry almost no mercury at all. That makes them one of the safest seafood choices you could put on your plate. Think of sardines as small but mighty warriors, fighting inflammation, protecting your joints, and keeping your bones strong, all in one simple, affordable package. Number 3, wild-caught Alaskan salmon. If there's one fish that truly deserves the spotlight, It's wild-caught Alaskan salmon. I sometimes call it the superstar of the seafood world because few foods pack as much healing power into every single bite. When my patients ask me, "Doctor, is there one fish I should invest in?" This is the one I always point to. Why? Because Alaskan salmon isn't just food, it's nourishment for both body and mind. It's loaded with omega-3s, EPA and DHA, the exact fatty acids your brain craves to stay sharp. In fact, studies have shown seniors with higher DHA levels actually had larger brain volumes and stronger memories. That's the kind of difference that helps you remember names, enjoy conversations, and stay independent longer. And then there's astaxanthin, the antioxidant that gives salmon its vibrant pink color. I like to tell my patients it's like natural armor for your cells, slowing down the rusting process of aging. Pair that with vitamin D and selenium, and you've got protection for your heart, your joints, your muscles, and even your skin. The best part? Wild Alaskan salmon swims freely in clean, cold waters, making it far safer and purer than farmed salmon. It's not just delicious, it's one of the greatest gifts you can give your body after 60. Number 4. Atlantic herring. And finally, let's shine a light on a fish that rarely gets the attention it deserves. Atlantic herring. It may not be as glamorous as salmon or as familiar as tuna, but in many ways, it's a quiet powerhouse waiting to be discovered. I sometimes call it the hidden gem of the sea. Herring is rich in omega-3s, vitamin D, and something many people don't realize they need, CoQ10. That's a compound your cells use to create energy, and it's especially important for your heart. I once had a patient in his late 60s who often complained of feeling tired, even though his heart was technically healthy. When he began adding herring into his meals, pickled, sometimes smoked, he noticed not only more energy, but sharper focus and improved stamina on his daily walks. What I love about herring is that it supports circulation, helping your blood flow more efficiently, and it reduces the kind of fatigue that sneaks up as we age. Even more, it helps shield the brain, protecting memory and clarity of thought. So while it may not be the most famous fish at the market, Atlantic herring is one of the wisest choices you can make if you're serious about aging strong, with energy and vitality that lasts. So here's what I want you to take away tonight. The truth is simple but powerful. The wrong fish can quietly accelerate aging, damage your memory, burden your heart, and fan the flames of inflammation in your body. I've seen it happen far too often. Patients eating tilapia, tuna, imported catfish, or king mackerel, thinking they were making healthy choices, only to discover those very meals were stealing their strength. But the beautiful part is this: you have the power to turn it around. The right fish act almost like medicine. Wild-caught cod, sardines, salmon, trout, even the overlooked herring. They nourish your muscles, sharpen your mind, lift your mood, and help you stay independent. They are nature's gift, designed to keep your body resilient and your spirit strong. And here's the good news: you don't need to overhaul everything at once. Sometimes the biggest changes begin with the smallest steps. Imagine swapping out just one meal a week, choosing salmon instead of tilapia or sardines instead of tuna. Over time, those choices add up, building a healthier future where you feel clearer, stronger, and more alive. I often tell my patients, what you put on your plate today shapes the quality of your life tomorrow. That's true for me, for you, for all of us. So now, I'd love to hear from you. What fish do you usually eat? After hearing this, will you make a change? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read as many as I can, and your story might inspire someone else. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with a friend who loves seafood, and subscribe to It's Better Health so you never miss more science-backed strategies to live stronger, longer. Here's to making wise choices, and here's to a healthier you.